Tech for ID.
Tech for ID.
Tech for ID.
Technology for Indonesia.
Technology for Indonesia.
Technology for Indonesia.
Technology for everyone.
Technology for everyone.
Technology for everyone.
Tools from around the world as SaaS in Indonesia, thus making them available to local organizations and providers. And let us invite Mr. Ted. Hello, Mr. Ted Hilbert.
Selamat malam, good evening. Thank you for inviting me to talk to you tonight.
Thank you so much for wanting to share a lot of your experiences and knowledge today. It's an honor to be with you right here, Mr. Ted.
Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Ted, we would like to know more about you. If there is something that I haven't covered, would you please tell us more about yourself, sir?
Well, originally I come from one of the smallest countries in the world, Luxembourg, where I was very blessed with having an education since early childhood with 6 languages. And our little country is also one of the most tech-savvy countries in the world, where the government very early has seen the digital trend and built a lot of data centers and connectivity to all the major hubs around Europe. So that was basically pure luck to grow up in a country where from early on you are surrounded by technology. And that way I have pursued the career from the beginning in IT and technology.
Yeah, we can see that all of your experiences before in IT is very broad, and we are very delighted to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
All right, sir. We have heard the term of digital transformation being used everywhere, but sometimes it can mean different things in many ways. I think it is important to start a definition on the term digital transformation and what does that really mean. So would you please explain to us about what is digital transformation?
All right. That is a really good question. These days, you hear about digital transformation everywhere, right? And it can mean a lot of things. You can look at government doing smart city projects. That's definitely digital transformation of cities. We have the education sector that is going digital and went extremely fast digital when the pandemic started. I'm very lucky to have a wife who is in the field of education, and I could really follow live how at the beginning of the closure of the campuses, everybody was rushing to try ways to do learning from home. So that is definitely that digital transformation of the whole educational sector. So across the board, things are going digital. I think tonight we will focus on the aspects of how these digital tools can help organizations to work more efficiently, thus creating a better customer experience. And of course, what's of most interest to the owners and the CFOs of this world is how it is going to impact the bottom line, right? So in that sense, I think for tonight, we can coin the term digital transformation as the different processes and tools that can be used to make an organization more efficient and, of course, profitable, right?
Profitable. All right. And okay, so would you please also give us a quick introduction to digital transformation and why is it important? Considering that, as you explained before, we are now just shifting everything to digital.
Well, right now, I would say the shift has accelerated since 1 year, but this is a process that has started long ago. You can say digital transformation started when the first computers started appearing on the market, right? In terms of why is it important, let me give you a very simple example that I guess everybody can relate to. Let's say it's in the middle of the month. You already had a lot of expenses. Your bank account is dry. Your savings are long-term locked away. Still 2 weeks until Gaji. Yeah. And your roof starts leaking. Yeah. And it's raining into your house. You need 10 million rupiah to fix your roof, money that you don't have. Now, if you go to your old school brick and mortar traditional bank, you take a ticket antrian, you sit there for an hour or two, and then you have to talk to some customer service. That can be embarrassing, right? Nobody likes to ask for money. You have to fill in some forms, and in the end, they tell you, yeah, we'll let you know in 10 business days our decision, right? So you're going to sit at home for 10 days. Yeah, 10 days. But that's, you know, that's the typical time, 1 week, 10 days. And every day it rains into your house. Right now, maybe somebody can hear the rain. Here in Bogor, it's raining quite hard. So for you, that is not an ideal situation. Yeah. Whereas if your bank would have gone digital, or if you use a fintech app, yeah, or something maybe in the future, even Gojek or so is going to provide this, where you just open your handphone and you click a few things, you fill in a few things, you take some pictures with the camera of your national ID KTP, your family card, and your last 1 or 3 Gaji slips, and you submit it, and then hopefully, if all goes well, within half a day, the money is in your account, and you can get the workers to come to fix your roof. So for you, this digitalized bank, digitally transformed bank, has really helped you to solve a very urgent problem. If we look at it from the business side, from the bank side, yeah, your local bank, where you would antrian and wait for 10 days to get the loan, you will never go there again. Yeah? So if they transform digitally, using the right tools so that they can also provide a fintech-like experience to their customers, well, then they are able to retain their customers or even grow their customer base instead of losing them to the new age fintechs that are popping up. A very good example of this is Bank PTPN, which was a very irrelevant small Indonesian pension bank, actually. And then all of a sudden they launched Genius. Yeah, and Genius was
which is genius.
exactly, and it was one of the pioneers in this country.
Yeah.
And I still remember when Genius was launched, they gained millions of customers in just a few weeks. So obviously, from a business perspective, PTPN has probably saved their business, or at least dramatically expanded and solidified it by going digital. Yeah, so these are just, it's just one example which shows you two sides of the same and showing the tremendous benefits that come with going digital for certain things. Yeah.
All right. So, in your opinion, who are the stakeholders that it is very important for them to do digital transformation?
Are you referring to the stakeholders in an organization?
In a country, like is it government? Is it very urgent for governments or organizations or maybe companies? Like who do you think that is very urgent for them to go to digital transformation?
Very urgent. Well, to me, what comes to mind first is government, of course. Government is not profit driven, so they do not have a monetary incentive to survive or to increase their bottom line. Companies don't really have a choice. They go digital or they go bust. It's as simple as that. I just finished a pretty lengthy process with what we call the aparat in Indonesia, which is like the authorities involving police and the local government. And previously also dealing obviously as a foreigner in this country with immigrations and seeing the brown folders with the papers inside being handed around and the police headquarters not having a clue what is done in the regional or the what do you call it, the sectoral office, unless somebody jumps on a motorbike and brings a folder to the other office. I think the most urgent need is in government, because that is also setting an example for the rest of the country. And obviously it is increasing the level of service that is provided to the citizens. And of course, if you have an environment where the law works well, the government services are working well, that creates more prosperity, which means better health, better economy, more happy people, etc. So definitely, I think that is the priority. Setting a legal framework from regulatory side that encourages, enables, and even allows digital transformation. And on the other hand, also streamlining the government services to its citizens. That would be key. But then obviously you have things like the financial sector, the things that are the backbone of the country, like the financial sector, the healthcare sector, that really need to function well in order for the whole country to function. I mean, here in Indonesia right now, we have this, what do you call it, this Puskesmas, the community health centers, which is the backbone of Indonesian public health care. And it's suboptimal, really, because everything is still old school. And if you go to a different Puskesmas than where you went before, they don't know anything about you. So this backbone, or country infrastructure, organizations and institutions are also very important to accelerate their transformation with digital tools.
Amazing. From your answers, we can really see how you really understand how Indonesian organizations and also like public sector works. It's amazing, sir. You are also wearing the durian batik today, yeah?
Yeah, durian.
That's very impressive. That's
Yeah,
very,
but
very impressive.
but I must say that Indonesia has come a long way. When I first came to Indonesia, people were still riding on the roof of the economy commuter trains, right? And within just a few years, you see what happened to all the stations aesthetically, but also cashless. I've never
Indeed.
seen any country going cashless for so quickly for all transportation, for the toll roads, for the buses, for the trains. So we can see Indonesia, yes, is lagging behind in certain fields, but the speed of transformation is sometimes really overwhelming here. We are still quite far away from something like Estonia, which is the leading country in the world, where you as a citizen do not have to ever visit a government office during your whole life for whatever it is. It's all in your phone basically, and digital. We're still quite a way from that, but yeah, it's also a much bigger country, right? So things are happening, and it's impressive at the speed of which they are happening here.
That is actually good news. I'm very delighted to know that. When did you come to Indonesia, sir?
First time 2011 and settled here sometime around 2012. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's quite a long time already. All right. So, digital transformation is very broad, right? But what are the main areas for digital transformation, and what are the main components of it, if there are any?
Well, I can only speak for my field of expertise, which is in the field of optimizing organizational processes. And well, the main components, I think we can describe them technically. Yeah, we can go a bit technical, I guess. You have things like artificial intelligence, which is one of the main building blocks for nowadays modern applications. You also have process automation tools, which allow you to pass documents, tasks, or other things around an organization, from department to department or so, which, the basic tools. Before that, we have the foundational layers, which are education in the field of cybersecurity awareness, which are important before we can even think about going digital. The stakeholders need to understand the risk and implications. So I would say you have the awareness and educational part for the different aspects that are important. You have the aspect of making sure to choosing the right tools that are the most suitable for the goal that you want to achieve. And then one of the most important things where I run into challenges in every single project that we work on is actually the organizational, let's call it, mindset. Where, I mean, you have to look at it this way. It will not bring you any benefits if you throw the best digital tool at a problem, without first looking at the processes themselves to make them suitable for the digital world, and have your people, your teams, your staff, your even external collaborators being on board, understanding the benefits, and being able and willing to transform their thinking to go along with the process. So the digital transformation itself doesn't bring much and doesn't work well if we don't combine it with the process transformation and the human resource transformation. Yeah. So these two other building blocks are as important or even more important than the digital aspect itself.
All right, talking about your expertise when it comes to organization and also companies, how is it going to impact the bottom line and create revenue?
Now you're getting to my favorite topic. Okay. So basically, from a CFO perspective, or an owner perspective, there's two things you can do to increase your bottom line, right? One is to increase your revenue. And then if your cost is pretty much linear with the increase of revenue, or then you can achieve a increase in your bottom line. But it's sometimes not so easy to increase your revenue. And in that case, we need to look at reducing our cost. Because if we have the same revenue and less cost, then our bottom line obviously is also improved. When it comes to digital tools, they can help in both ways. So when it comes to increasing the revenue, you have a plethora of options available. Increase your sales means you can tap into the huge potential of digital marketing, search engine marketing, social media marketing, which obviously means you need to educate yourself or your staff in that field or hire the right experts. You can use AI-based things like chatbots, that allow potential customers to very easily on the website straight away interact with your business. And these AI bots, they can help to very quickly give the customer basic answers, qualify the lead, and then maybe pass it on to a real human to follow up, etc. So you have a plethora of possibilities to achieve that. But sometimes, as I said, the lowest hanging fruit to increase your bottom line is reduce your cost. And again, we have very powerful options to transform digitally to achieve that. Let's take an example, a very simple example, something like purchase to pay. Yeah, so the organization, the company, they want to purchase something. So it starts with somebody needs to purchase something, and it ends with paying the vendor. And there are so many processes involved in that. Yeah. So first, the approval from maybe the lowest ranking department manager, and then the next guy, and then the next guy, maybe up until the CFO. Then it goes to the procurement department. They have all kinds of tasks to do. Then finally, a purchase order is issued. Your goods arrive. They have to be received. They have to be processed. They have to be passed to the right people. And then you get the invoice from the vendor. That invoice has to be processed, checked against the PO. And eventually, somebody has to transfer the money to the vendor. Right, that is a process. If that is currently done manually, that takes a huge amount of time, meaning human resources. And in most companies, human resources are one of the most expensive factors. So if we can have a system where the person who needs to purchase something, maybe it's even just a laptop for the new staff that they hired, or it can be a $10 million machine. It's always the same. But it starts with somebody filling in a form on a computer, submits it, automatically it goes to the next approval process, which is predefined. Yeah. It takes the next step, maybe 1 or 2 minutes to finish it. Artificial intelligence can help to determine based on conditions or conditional workflows into maybe if it's above $1,000 has to go through this approval process, below to that approval process. And the whole thing takes maybe 10% of the time that it took before. Even artificial intelligence can help you to read an incoming invoice, read the amount, who is the vendor, what is the purchase order number, basically read everything and then carry out actions that are predefined or where there's some logic behind, pretty much taking away a lot of the human decision making, which is time consuming, and also reducing the time spent on getting that invoice paid down to maybe just 10% of what it was before. So these are that's just one example where with just one process you can save 90% of the time which is worth money spent on that process. So I guess if we look at other processes that are maybe even more costly, well, we are always doing with our clients is we ask them to think about what are the processes that are most repetitive and require the least amount of complicated decision making, and also which happen a lot of the time. Yeah, so repetitive, happening often, and currently quite time consuming. And then maybe we can start with 1 or 2 processes. We don't want to overwhelm an organization. We just pick the lowest hanging fruits, those that are maybe the most repetitive. We transform these digitally, and then already we can start to see a benefit in terms of bottom line. Yeah. And then after that is, how to say, that is implemented, the organization has learned from maybe some mistakes or challenges, and this is running smoothly, then we can go look at more tricky, more challenging processes to automate them. Yeah, but we want to stay away from anything that is impacting customers in the beginning, because we don't want our customers to be affected if we have some glitches in the implementation process. But once the organization is doing well with the internal processes, then we can start looking at the outside facing processes, the revenue generating processes, and the customer affecting processes, which is things like customer support even. So in the end of the day, every organization is different, but I think it's quite clear that the bottom line can definitely be dramatically improved through implementing the right tools and processes.
All right, that is already a lot, and your answer has actually covered. It's all right. It actually covered my next question, but yeah, because I was about to ask, like, what is it that really implies for organization or companies for doing the digital transformation? And you have already been explaining that very, very well. Thank you so much for all the pointers. And by the way, before you were talking about if an organization or companies are going through the digital transformation, they have to also transform their mindset. Is this what you mean by that? Like the mindset should be really, uh, what is it, like engraved to digitalization? Like, is that what you mean?
Well, first of all, there needs to be a mindset of accepting change. If you have a workforce that is stubborn and starts a revolution every time you want to change something, then we're going to have a hard time to transform digitally. So we're talking about organizational culture here, where from top to bottom, there needs to be a spirit of innovation and out of the box thinking and accepting change. I give you a good example. Having managed small sales teams, it's always challenging to introduce a CRM, right? Because the sales people, they just see it as an additional nuisance, having to enter all this information just so that their boss and his boss and the boss above, that they have something to stare at on their computer screen, etc. And the sales people, they do not see any benefit for their work, etc. So if we want to go about bringing a CRM into a sales team, it is important that you have the buy-in from your salespeople, and you get the buy-in from them by giving them a benefit from using the technology. Um, this is on one hand an educational thing,
Mhm.
basically making it very clear, explaining the benefits that it brings to the company and thus to the salespeople, but also you need to implement the CRM in a way that it does provide concrete benefits to the salespeople. For example, they get more leads, yeah, because the CRM helps to do a better lead generation. More leads means they have more clients that they can convert and thus more commission they can earn. But also the CRM should be something that is helping them save time. Um, for example, for their meeting schedule planning, automatic reminders so that they make sure that they don't miss the next sales call and that way maybe lose the deal. Um, but yeah, CRM is just one example, a pretty hard one where usually there are a lot of objections. Um, But all of this has nothing to do with digital tools. This has to do with doing things in the right way so that you have the people affected by the transformation on board or even looking forward to the transformation.
Besides the mindset, what are other challenges that usually occurs when it comes to organization and also companies who are wanting to go through digital transformation?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is obviously what we call SDM in Indonesia, Sumber
Yeah.
Daya Manusia, your workforce. So if you have a traditional business, let's say it's a construction company, you're very good at building things, or your manufacturing company, you're very good at, I don't know, building whatever you build, but you do not have any human resources in your organization um, that know much about all of these aspects of the technology itself that needs to be introduced. So in that case, the organization needs to be open to work with external collaborators um, to fix that issue, help to get training for their staff, um, finding the right people in Indonesia, that often means hiring foreigners when it comes to certain fields where there's not much local skilled personnel available. That, in my mind, is really one of the key challenges to overcome, but they can be overcome by working with the right external collaborators. For example, when it comes to choosing the right tools, which usually is software, it's pretty pointless if you just deal with some account manager who's trying to sell you a piece of software. You need to choose vendors that understand your business, that understand your challenges, and that also understand the goals that you want to achieve, and openly and honestly can talk about the pros and cons, of the solution that they are offering. So choosing the right vendor finding the right solution and choosing the right vendor is another common challenge. And then let's not forget cybersecurity. If you go about throwing digital solutions at your problems and you do not have a cybersecurity approach from the ground up, then you totally gonna run into trouble. I just need to mention, for example, Lion Air, Batik Air. All of a sudden, 500,000 or so, I don't remember, of customer records appeared on the internet, just because some worker in India, some IT guy in India, probably not very qualified, took a backup of a database into Amazon S3 storage. Well, in S3 storage, it's designed for public use in a way, so that you can save pictures and stuff in there that is being used by a website. And you need to make it private and password protected if you want your data to not be on the public internet. Well, that was simply forgotten because that person did not know enough about the technology that they were using. So you can get heavy fines, reputational damage, up to completely losing your business through cybersecurity related issues. And in that case, it really makes sense to have one dedicated or one person in charge for all digital things, like a CSO, Chief Security Officer, or in case you do not have a suitable person in-house, to work with external partners that are specialized in this field.
Talking about cybersecurity, what are other main risks that is going to occur from the digital transformations?
In terms of cybersecurity, or
other than that, or maybe we can also dig deeper on the cybersecurity.
Well, yeah. I mean, of course, you have all kinds of risks. Yeah. As with anything that is done in an organization, you need to know what you're doing. You have, with cybersecurity, you can lose data, but if you implement a solution that doesn't work very well and gives your customers a poor experience, then you're going to lose customers. Or if you have you implement a system that is not working well, let's say for your paying your vendors, and constantly your system or the processes are causing your vendors to being paid late, they're also not going to like to work with you. They're not going to give you their best pricing, because they have more cost serving you as a customer. The risks are spread across every field, but this can all be avoided if you do a proper risk management assessment before venturing into transforming something. This again comes down to having the right knowledge in-house, or choosing the right external partner that is experienced in this field.
All right, so we have been talking a lot about process automation, right? And would you please give us like a definition of what is process automation?
All right. Well, we started our conversation about the fictional case of you needing to borrow money urgently, right?
Yes.
Well, the process, well, you going into the bank asking for money, that starts the process, and the process ends with the money being in your bank account. And the process automation basically means taking that process and using digital tools like workflow automation, business process automation, robotic process automation, and combining it with artificial intelligence to take previously manually executed processes and let those processes be executed or managed digitally. Be it digitally managed but still manually controlled, or digitally managed and completely or to some extent being controlled by artificial intelligence. So you take any process that's currently manual, you throw all the fancy gimmicks that are available on the technology side at this process, and you end up with something that is much more efficient because the automation takes away most of the time consuming aspects. I cannot hear you. You are muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. And how does cloud-based process automation work?
So with bringing cloud into this mix, we are getting into a very interesting dimension. Often, especially here in Indonesia, we have these, well, us practitioners in this field jokingly call the server huggers, the people that want to hug their servers, which means, all the implications of having to manage the servers, the security, the patches, the updates, the operating systems, etc., which can have tremendous cost impacts, tremendous security, cybersecurity impacts, and all kinds of issues related to that. Now, when we talk cloud, we need to define the term cloud. Typically here in Indonesia, when we talk cloud, people think of it as infrastructure as a service, which means kind of the same as they have on-premise physical servers. They just are renting this on a OpEx basis from a provider. That is something which makes sense for certain cases, but in this field that we are talking about here, we are way past infrastructure as a service. We are talking software as a service, platform as a service type of services, where typically, first of all, you do not need to invest anything to test and try and learn from your mistakes, actually even for free. All these tools that are available from good providers always have extensive free trials and testing periods. So that will be more easy, but then also your going lifetime. Typically, like if we want to introduce a software or let's say a digital tool into a large organization, it will take forever. Maybe this year we think about it, next year we make a budget request, the third year we launch a tender, and maybe within 4 or 5 years we have this thing in place. and the market has already moved into a completely different direction. Whereas when we do this using as a service tools, which are readily available to be consumed, you can get your projects off the ground in no time. And we're not looking at IT implementations anymore. We only need to focus on the business implementations, about the things we talked about before, you know, the culture, the process transformation. So in that sense, cloud allows you to act much, much quicker. We're talking weeks instead of years, but also from a financial perspective. The old school on-premise way means CapEx. I have to buy hardware, I have to buy network equipment, I have to buy software licenses, and God knows what else. And then of course, when we talk CapEx, you have to deal with the CFO. Yeah, good luck with that, to get him to approve a couple of $1 million where you cannot even show him a clear return on investment. Yeah. Whereas when we talk cloud, we talk OpEx. So besides the quicker implementation time technically, we also have a quicker implementation time financially, because we can work with operational budgets. We do not need to work with capital expenditure budgets. And then talking about budgets, not every company is like Apple and sitting of billions or trillions or whatever dollars of cash. Cash flow is usually a serious concern in companies, and doing large capital expenditures is not always a healthy option for a company. So if we can spread this big capital expenditure into small monthly expenses, it's definitely going to make the CFO happier. It's also going to make the lenders or the banks happier in case you need to borrow money, because the bank is dealing with an organization that has like a kind of fixed or reasonably stable monthly operation expenditure basis, and not big capital expenditures looming here or there. Like I don't know, like $1 million ERP license renewal coming up and these kind of things. So the benefits of using cloud are stretched throughout the whole organization. Now, obviously, the first concern that your old school traditional managers or directors will raise is, oh, but I don't want, it's not safe. In the cloud, you know, people can steal my data, all these security incidents. For example, like Lion Air, right? The 500 million customer data, giving a very bad impression about cloud, whereas it was just a simple human error. So for this, we just need to, you know, look at it. If you have an IT manager with 2 IT systems administrators that are running your servers on premise, one of them is not happy, maybe there was some conflicts, you can just walk out with your server, and all your data is gone. And so you lose your data and he can maybe sell it to the competitor, right? That guy cannot necessarily walk into a Google or Alibaba data center and steal the servers. And if the data is properly protected in the cloud in terms of who has access to what, with logging and traceability, it's obviously much safer than somebody being able to walk out with a server. Then also we need to ask the question, who is more capable and experience in managing cybersecurity risks?
Mhm.
Is it your average IT guy that is looking after a couple of servers in your organization? Or is it the engineers of Google or Alibaba, etc., or Salesforce, or all the major providers? Who is better at managing this? And then when we talk about SaaS, yeah, the customer is not touching any security related matters except the passwords. Yeah? No operating systems, no updates, no firewalls, just usernames and passwords to access the application, right? And even when we talk about creating own business processes, yeah, the cloud-based tools now allow you to create how to say, mini applications in your organization that that solve a certain business challenge. You do not need any complicated developing environments anymore. The new key technology is called no code, low code,
No code,
where
no codes.
no code, no coding or low coding, which means that you can create an application without the need for having software development or coding skills. We are working with several tools in that sense, where organizations can then create specific mini applications for specific business requirements or processes. And you can create these applications with just drag and drop. Basically, you configure the application. You do not create or code the application. You don't need to worry about like the database integration, the other frameworks related to that. You do not even need to worry about the development environment or the POC environment. The whole thing is running in the cloud. The people log in with the username and password at a certain URL or use a mobile app. And then the in-house people can focus on creating business-specific applications that then can rapidly be deployed. If we look at, I'm talking enterprise level, you want a custom application for a certain business requirement, and there's nothing on the market for that. You're going to hire a team of developers, and then the clock starts ticking. And we are talking potentially years until your application is ready for being introduced into live transactions. Whereas with this cloud SaaS-based no coding or low coding tools, we are talking weeks now. We are talking weeks. As long as you have done a proper preparation in terms of mapping out what you want to achieve and the processes involved, then all it takes is somebody with average IT skills and mostly understanding of the business processes to create an application ready for testing and within a few weeks and ready for transacting live in your organization, maybe a month or maximum a few months. All of this is only possible through cloud. Only the largest of organizations who have, their own big private clouds that are pretty much a mirror or that work pretty much the same way as a Google or Alibaba cloud. They just have it on premise. Okay, that may be different. But for your average small, medium, or even larger organization who don't have that facility, it almost makes no sense to not use cloud. From the regulatory perspective, there are also no objections or obstacles. The only things that you need to be careful about is the data localization for certain sectors like Indonesian financial services. They're not allowed to store any data outside of the country. I believe in the healthcare sector, there are similar things. So as long as you learn and understand about the regulatory framework, you can use cloud. Like until not so long ago, Indonesian financial services all had this completely wrong perception that they are not allowed to use cloud.
Why?
That was purely because they were not allowed to use foreign cloud services. And typically when we talk about cloud, people only know, Amazon, Google, Alibaba, etc. Those guys are here now, but until recently they were not here. And because banks could not use them, they all thought they couldn't use cloud at all. But it was not about the technology, it was just about the location of the data. So it's important to understand the regulatory aspects. Also, when it comes to going digital in terms of going paperless. We have a regulatory framework in Indonesia that allows any organization to completely go paperless. Maybe there are a few exceptions, but I'm not aware of any. With the introduction of the government regulation 82, PP 82 in 2012, and the subsequent regulations that have replaced it or added to it recently. Sorry, I think that's my cat.
It's adorable. You don't mind at all.
Okay, so even things like digital signature. The one part of PP82 is talking about digital signature. So there are no objections from legal side really to use cloud-based services, going paperless, or generally speaking, implementing digital transformation. The only obstacles in that sense are usually coming from internal regulations or top management not really understanding certain things because they understand their field of business, not technology and the law. So yeah, that was quite long. Sorry, but I think that covers your questions about why, what are the benefits of cloud. Yeah.
Actually, you have been covering a lot of my questions already. And when it comes to creating process automation in the cloud, what are the things that we have to put our attention to for choosing cloud-based tools?
So you are referring to not to the processing, the tools themselves, but more to the cloud aspects to the. Okay, I understand what you mean. Yeah. So obviously, it comes back to what I mentioned. You need to understand the regulatory framework. If you are a financial service, the provider that you choose must be ISO 27001, which is which relates to how they are managing the data and the security aspects. It's called ISMS, Information Security Management System. So as a fintech, for example, you must be ISO 27001 certified to get the fintech license. And the IT services, especially those that save, that store data from your customers, they also need to have that certification. So that's one example of regulatory requirement. The other example would be the data localization. Yeah. As a bank or fintech, again, you need to choose a provider that keeps your data locally and not abroad. So it all comes down again to applying common sense, and either you really know what you're doing, meaning you have done your research, you are knowledgeable in the field, or if that's not the case and you don't have those resources internally, you go out and you work with third parties that can fill those gaps, that that help you to reach your goal.
Mhm. And when it comes to choosing vendors or third parties, are there some pointers that you can give us of what is it that we have to really put attention to?
Yeah. So obviously, we want a vendor that is more like a partner than just a vendor, because we are putting a lot of, of our valuable business aspects into their hands. They need to be reputable, so you can research your vendor in terms of reviews on the internet. You can check their certifications. You can check LinkedIn. Um, in LinkedIn, it is very easy to determine if a certain company has a lot of personnel fluctuations or stable human resource situation. You would certainly not want to deal with a vendor where every staff runs away after a few months because you don't get stability. Um, all the right certifications. You need to make sure they are in the right location. You can try to find out what are their other customers. Do they have customers? For example, if you're dealing with an account manager from a SaaS or PaaS or even YaaS, whatever provider, um, it's quite important to ask that account manager for examples of other customers that are in a similar field as yourself. Maybe they are not allowed to mention them, but you should always question them to find out if they have experience that is relevant for your industry or for the type of maybe processes that you want to automate. Because the vendor is going to play an important role in the whole implementation process, and you want them to have an understanding of what you actually want to do. The other thing is, look for maybe smaller vendors. Do not just, I mean, there is this saying in the IT industry, no IT manager has ever been fired for buying IBM. Yeah? But that comes with a lot of downsides as well. In some cases, the biggest guys like an SAP or a Salesforce or pure cloud like Amazon makes sense. But in other cases, you might get a much better deal, a better service, and also more industry relevant knowledge from a more local provider. So there is no one size fits all answer to this question, but it comes down to common sense. Make sure the provider is decent, certified, stable, and knowledgeable and helpful, and doesn't just want to sell you something and then please leave me alone. And so
All right,
common
sir.
sense, right?
Yeah. But it is always helpful to get some pointers from the expert. And what is your hope, sir, when it comes to future the digital revolutionize and like also this cloud services? Like, what is it that you hope for the future?
Related to Indonesia or generally?
Generally, and then Indonesia.
Okay, well, I think we should not focus too much or entirely on this digital transformation. Let's not forget that we are all humans, right? So let's never forget the human aspect of all of this. A simple example is do not just throw a chatbot out there without it really being the right situation for a chatbot. People need to talk to people. People need to interact with people. This pandemic has caused so much societal damage, right? By really limiting the social interactions. So I would hope that people always think um, more about, the human aspect before thinking about the digital aspect. Um, because in the end, it is humans that use it, humans that buy it, humans that need to live with it. And the technology can be the most advanced in the world if it doesn't serve the benefit of society or humans, then it is really not worth it, right? So this all fits into this current awareness about the environment, about climate change, about biodiversity, about all these things that we as humans and all our animal friends, like those that are barking and meowing around here, uh, we all need a good environment that is healthy, so that we are healthy. And let's use technology in a positive way that is supporting all of these things, and maybe spend more attention or pay more attention to all of this, rather than what I see a lot is really like too much focus just on the technology or on keywords like industry 4.0, and then let's look at it as a whole, and let's make the technology always serve let's say to make society or our society and everything around it better.
That is a very interesting answer, because that takes another question actually. Like, how is it? How the development of the digital transformation and also the cloud process automation that is having impact on ecological side?
Yeah, so you mentioned something really important here. When it comes to Indonesia, we really have a big problem here, which is the electricity generation currently is really detrimental to the environment. It's coal. It's destroying and scarring the environment, the forest, etc., where it is being dug out of the soil. It creates damage through transportation. It causes tremendous amounts of pollutants and CO2 when it is being burned. But our data centers in Indonesia, the biggest country, the biggest digital country in ASEAN, one of the fastest growing digital economies also in the world. I mean, you cannot imagine how many servers a Gojek, a Tokopedia, etc. Need, even though some of them are using cloud, like Tokopedia and Google, etc. Still, it's data centers that are running in the country with servers that are consuming tremendous amounts of electricity, and all of that is currently coming from coal. There are
So,
very few green data centers here. I know of one in Jakarta that is a little bit cleaner because they have a gas pipeline and they are producing their own electricity from gas, which is a bit better than coal, but it's still fossil fuels. So we need to do tremendous investments here into how we power our digital economy. because the way it is going right now, the more the digital economy grows, the more power it consumes, the more coal is being burnt. You mentioned before we started that you had a blockchain event earlier today, right?
Yes.
Well, Bitcoin is one of the blockchain applications, and it is an extremely inefficient technology. Bitcoin.
Okay.
Bitcoin, just the generation of the Bitcoins is consuming more electricity than some whole countries, some mid-sized countries in this world. I believe, I hope I'm not wrong, but the last thing I heard is like the Bitcoin mining uses more electricity than the whole country of Iceland is consuming. So the biggest environmental impact from cloud, digital transformation, digital economy is definitely on the power generation side. And then when we want to do the power generation green, then we should also try not to destroy the environment to build dams that are flooding forests, etc. So it has an environmental impact, it's a fact, and it needs to be improved going forward.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ted, for all the sharing session, and also this is a very pleasant interview that we're having tonight. And
well,
we want
you
to
had
ask
some
you
really
to
good
say
questions.
our tagline, actually. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we would love to ask you to say Tech for ID's tagline. The tagline is Tech for ID, technology for Indonesia, technology for everyone.
I think I can remember that.
Would you please, sir?
Okay. Tech for ID,
So it's
technology for... Okay, I start again. Tech for ID, technology for Indonesia, technology for everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. All right, thank you so much, everyone, also for tuning in tonight. We have been having a very interesting talk with Mr. Ted Hilbert, and hopefully we are going to see you soon to another live tech talk session. So yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening, sir. Thank you so much.